Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojú ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 3 of Theoryforge Chronicles. That was actually on purpose. I'm going to probably make a habit to kind of try to screw things up as best as I can. But thank you for joining us. I am Phantom X, of course, joined by Diggs, Sog, legendary Neurotoxin, and we have a very special guest. Malvorn has joined us. And tonight, we are going to talk about souls, death, and rebirth. So... first, before we get started, Malvorn, I kind of want to give you a chance for people who might be watching, don't know who you are, just to, I guess, introduce yourself and kind of go from there. That's where we'll start.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me on your show and allowing me to host my giveaway, which will be announced later. I'm the Duke of Farin. One of the dukes in the Kingdom of Elyria. I go by the username of Malvorn or Varun Malvorn, or some people call me the Horse Lord because I have a strong passion for horses and I work with horses in real life as well. So that's where it stems from. My duchy itself is focused on the focus on horses, yes, but also mainly on agriculture and the industries that support it. But also, I as a Duke, I have to be aware of the fact that I can't hyper focus on one thing. I need to be a bit broad and open to other people's playstyles. So the way I've done it, I've tried to meld all the different people's playstyles and goals into a way which focuses, which works around the duchy goals. So I've managed to find a community-focused way of achieving that.
So one of the things that you wanted that's important to you with your duchy, if I understand right, is religion, correct?
Yes, it's hugely important.
And the religion that you're a member of and you're proposing that your duchy follows the tenets of is the Vertori, correct?
Yeah, it is. That's correct. And specifically the Grand Church of the Vertori Faithful, made by Creator Flawless.
Okay, so the Vertori, I'm going to move this into our soul discussion real quick because that's what we're talking about today. But what I think is interesting about the Vertori and the souls is that the Vertori is the only religion that has that gives a right up front understanding of like this is right and this is wrong with the virtues and the vices. But with the soul system, we know that there's an alignment of a light and a dark system, right? So
yes, my
question, and I'd like to hear from Diggs a little bit about this, talking to start with, is so we know one religion has a pretty obvious like right and wrong system, but how in a world where there are multiple religions with multiple fundamental ideas do we rationalize the idea of a soul being light or dark?
Can I jump in real quick? Because I've got
I was hoping you'd jump in.
Yeah. So, because there's a lot of great stuff that Malvorn brought up that I was actually hoping we would have to talk about last time, because I feel like I have a pretty decent understanding of how to play in his region, although I have some more questions. So it's nice to hear that there's a focus on horses. It's nice to hear that there's a focus on religion, that you've chosen a specific religion. And that's the fun part for me. I can understand how to make a character and think about how I would want to relate a character to horses, or how I would want to relate a character to the religion, especially if I understand the specifics of the religion, in a way that I don't understand if the settlement or kingdom or duchy is focused on power, love, and law. Justice. I don't know how to play those things. So I have a few more questions actually for you. So there's a focus on horses, but is it horse racing? Is it horses as means of transportation? Are you hoping to be the horse mecca of the world, as in addition to being the mecca for the Vittori religion? What I'd like to hear some more specifics, especially about the focus on horses for your kingdom, and then I'll have a question about souls.
Of course. I want to use my real life experience and my skills and my expertise on creating the perfect, well, there's no such thing as a perfect program, but a good program on developing the equestrian skill base of the duchy. And the core backbone of that is a strong breeding program, which I will tightly control, will be tightly maintained. And from there on, you then utilize those horses for whatever it is you need to do. One of my goals, what I'm going to be focusing a lot towards, is creating the best cavalry. And by creating the best cavalry in the server, hopefully, is that to be a good war horse or good horse used for military purposes, you need to cover most of the bases. They need to be strong. They need to have endurance. You're also going to need different breeds, because you're going to need breed for carrying a heavy knight on your back, or good for lancing. We also might need smaller, more nimble horses for light cavalry and mounted javeliniers, etc., etc. So it'll be a tightly controlled but diverse breeding program, and because of the nature of it, it's going to need a whole load of host supporting industries. So you're going to need level workers, you're going to need metal workers, you're going to need farmers reduced to hay. Because if they do the feed to weight ratio, like in real life, then that's 2.5% of body weight per day of the horse. So if you've got 100 horses and they all weigh about 500 kilos each, 2.5% of each of those horse weight, the weight of horses each, all adds up very quickly. So you're going to need a supporting industry, and because of that, it will develop the economy of the duchy.
So that's even better. So it's more cavalry. The focus is more on cavalry than just, say, pure entertainment. And then so the Vittori is the one that has the virtues and vices?
Yes. All right. Virtues.
And so race, what are you thinking of your racial makeup?
Naman. I'll be happy with Profi, but mostly Naman. That's what I picked my 10 day one, and that's what I hope to get.
Yeah, that makes sense based on the lore that I've read. And then my understanding, if I remember correctly, I'm only actually able to read through one race per week because it's kind of racist, and it takes me a week to be able to get over the racism and move on to the next one. But my understanding, if I remember correctly, is that there's 7 virtues and 7 vices.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
I don't know their names off by heart, so. Okay,
but are you focused on specific ones?
I quite like the one on justice. I forgot his name now, but has a special theme because they care for that virtues ceremony. I believe you have to settle debts and settle. You have to do things like confessions and that sort of thing. That appeals to me. But also the one on giving and hospitality, that also appeals to me, because I'm not just single faceted. You know, I like all facets of it, and they all blend nicely together.
So it sounds like you're actually going for a fairly, I was going to say traditional, but what I mean by traditional is that it's going along with the kind of European sense of knighthood is what I'm feeling from it. Not necessarily feudal systems specifically, but I mean, it sounds like it's could be crusades, it could be knights, it could be, you know, that's the kind of feeling that I'm getting from what you've said so far.
Yeah, we've embarked on the path of virtue. So,
I mean, that could be all kinds of things. It's not quite knights, but
yeah, exactly.
It sounds like knighthood. So when I think about souls, I mean, I wish that we could get away from the talk of light and dark, and maybe even virtues and vices would be better for me than light and dark as motifs. You know, virtuous souls versus I don't know what the word is for
vicious.
Life. Vicious?
Yes, vicious. Virtuous and vicious. I struggled with that one until I looked it up.
That's weird. I think of vicious as something else, but
exactly. That's the only context that we ever hear, not the more literal sort of pedantic.
Because I don't know that I want the weird to be considered to be vicious either. But and so, are you thinking of being of your group or your society being opposed? Diametrically opposed to the actively aggressively opposed to the vices, or
I personally and many people in our community we recognised if you viciously go against something, you're just gonna make people attracted to it. So instead, what we plan to do in game for role play and community events, etc., is to guide people towards the virtues by allowing people to take the path of virtue on their own. So we'll give them support, we'll give them guidance, but it's their choice if I want to take part in the journey for virtues, because you can only be virtuous by wanting to be virtuous, and there will always be players and always be people who don't want to be virtuous, and they'll go to the vices, which is good because that creates content. It'd be very boring if everyone was virtuous. Or we want some vice people out there to. If there's no vice people out there, there's nothing to compare it to be virtuous.
Right. That's
now,
conflict.
Here's the sort of thing for me is virtue and vice, I feel like, is still kind of a matter of perception, eye of the beholder sort of thing. Like, to a Ferengi, what was considered virtuous is completely different to what a Klingon would consider virtuous.
Right.
And that was kind of the question that I want, since we're talking about souls today, and talking about the Vertori and virtues and vices like that it really goes into that first thing about souls is that we talked about, or if we talk about soul affinity, then soul affinity is presented as a global, as an overarching thing, that your soul is light or is dark, and that depending on what you choose, when story components are presented to you via the destiny system and all of that, that the system will learn and will keep suggesting you do specific things. So there has to be some sort of definition of what is virtuous and is not virtuous. Or do we think that this is somehow subjective or somehow related to the race that you are, which would assume your religion or whatever? Because I'm hoping to play Toresk, which would be kin, which is kind of like elder worship for the small, like, if I wanted to make it as simple as possible, right? That maybe as a Toresk, kindred. I'm interested in, I would think that whatever my forefathers did and how they made savvy trades and kind of like that Ferengi virtue kind of thing. But how does that then relate back to, does my soul get tainted for an aggressive deal?
I've got something to add on to that, and from the religious side as well, and it could perhaps affect the souls due to the Soulbound engine. But in our church, every set amount of in-game years, we're going to have a grand debate where we discuss all the what we consider virtues, what we consider vices, and topics, etc. And that allows instead of being set in stone, that allows you over time to change with the player base. So for a couple months in real life, the player base could be more more fanatical compared to a couple months after that when they're not so fanatical, and the grand debates can change the writings of the church as the people change.
So let's say that you are Vertori and you firmly believe, and you're presented a story element where you don't quite agree with this person that you're supposed to help, and you believe that you need to handle some justice here, right? So you will not help this person who came to help you because they need to be punished for something or whatever. So then could your soul could you get dark points or whatever? I don't even know how to talk about light and dark, because it seems so different to what we're presented in the lore about religion. So are you then like a dark, like tainted soul Vertori, because you're trying to follow the virtues? Is that a possibility?
The way I see it, wouldn't it be considered virtuous and actually a form of justice in its own to be the better soul and help someone in need, even if they wronged you?
I think the problem is we have to think about what helping means and what, and that's going to be the interesting thing, is how the individuals and how the cultures, there's a clash between how the cultures are presented and then how that relates to light and dark. There's
exactly.
There's a problem there. But so how does a Dross think that they're helping? Are they helping by poisoning people? From their point of view, that could be. And so I think from the game's perspective, that's gonna be a thing leading their soul to darkness. But from a Dross perspective, they're being virtuous.
Exactly.
Right?
That's how the game was designed. So there's no clear cuts. No one knows really what is the true path and what isn't. You just go by the path that you believe it is.
Not really, because in the Vittoria religion, we know what's a vice and we know it's a virtue. So the interesting thing I think about what you just said is that what I really hear you saying is you're going to have a debate about laws and what laws will change, but that's not really going to affect what is a vice and what is a virtue.
True. The symbols of the vice, the symbols of the virtues, and what they represent, I think most part they will stay the same. But what individual acts constitutes as movement towards those particular vices or those particular virtues will be the ones which will be decided upon. And
but it's not going to be decided by the players. That's going to be decided by the game. The players can decide on the laws, but they're not going to decide which virtues are leading people towards the light and which vices are leading people towards the dark.
True. But people's actions within those stories affects what people go to.
Right. So, but what I'm saying is, so you could talk about laws and having a debate about the laws, but I mean, that's not going to really change or determine verses or vices. Those are set in stone, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I think that's going to be. I mean, it's going to be interesting to play. That's the kind of thing that when I'm asking for fun, this is the type.
I love
of
it.
stuff that's fun to me. Wait. They do if you follow the virtues. Wait, the dross are not generally Vertori, right? But I wonder what he means by that.
Part of the question is
he actually. I want to clarify that real quick. He said specifically your religion plays a part in what is light or dark. So I think it's actually relative to what you've specifically chosen to follow.
At least in some way. But yeah, Morbus was right about the core of the question is that does the soul affinity system subscribe to moral absolutism? And how does that, but it appears from the responses that we've had in chat that the religion that you have or the race that you are and the things that make sense for your character will at least affect the choices that are given you. But my real question is it just okay for Draz to have darker souls because it's morally absolute, or does light mean you're doing what your religion and your and your tribe and your occupation think is right, and dark mean that you're kind of going against that? Or is light and dark an overarching moral absolute? And that,
yeah, and the interesting. Go ahead, finish real quick.
I think that fits the word perfectly because all the actions are about, in quotes, balance. So do we actually have light actions or dark actions, or is it all just balancing actions?
Well, there's neutral. Well, everybody starts neutral, so there's some degree of balance. But it seems to me the way it was described is that whether your soul is light or dark is going to affect the kinds of tasks that the game is asking you to do, and that if you're doing dark things like killing people or poisoning people, the game is going to ask you to do more of that. And the poisoning and attacking is what's considered dark by the game.
Which would imply that there is an overarching moral absolutism to the entire world that's built in structurally to the game.
Right. And so from your character's perspective, you're doing what's right for your religion. That's going to be true for the Weird if they're focused on assassination and killing. But their soul should be, this is why I don't like the phrasing, their souls will be dark, like their skin will be dark, because they're focused on killing people. And I'm imagining something similar for the Dross too, if their culture revolves around poison and poison doesn't really affect them the way it does other people. I can see them. And that's one of the things that I'm wondering too, kind of since we have Malvorn on, in relation to his settlement duchy, is he has a focus and he's hoping that he will have a duchy that's strong with cavalry, but there might be rivals, and then how might rivals interact with him and his duchy? How might a Dross community that wants to be the cavalry mecca of the world interact with Malvorn's community?
Well, that's good because competition drives development.
Yeah, but the different ways. I just wonder how, the difference between a Niran community trying to be that and a Broodveer community trying to be that and a Dross community trying to be that. And then again, how does that factor into the souls, especially if you're... And then, do you have this screen up for that page that was on the forums. I'm wondering now about crafting and military, the colors, which I don't have in front of me right now.
Those.
That's showing where you have skill ramps, right? So on the soul selection screen, the color that your soul is presented at will be defined by where you have the highest concentrations of skill ramps. So it's what you've learned in the past. So if I understand the picture correctly, the center part either has a light or like a black hole, and that shows how light or dark your affinity is. And then the color of the spreading mist is has to do with what skill ramps you have. So if you are someone who is something. Are aliens landing in your yard, Phantomex? I don't. Well,
I've been muted, so that's not from me.
So we get these different things. Now, if I have skill ramps that say I have a soul, or since we got that old soul reward, say I have something that comes in, and I've got one on my account on NA East, right, where Malvorn's duchy will be, and I see that I have an animal breeding skill ramp. Like, I might think, well, that's a pretty good place for me to spark this character. Like, I might want to do that. But with that brings up another question as we get into this. So how much will, for each of you, I'd like to hear, if you are presented with a soul that has natural skill ramps in an area, how much will that change what you want to play? So if you have something that has skill ramps and farming, we know Phantomex wants to be a farmer anyway, but I might not want to be a farmer, right? How much Neuro, just pick an example of like a potential skill ramp that you have, how much will that affect what you decide to play? Will that affect the kind of character you want to play in the game?
I don't know. For me, I'm going to play the character that I've decided, no matter what they throw at me, to be perfectly honest. And if it turns out to be a very difficult, arduous sort of thing, well, I'll have more souls.
So you guys have an idea of the character you want to play, and the ramps that are there are, totally irrelevant. They either make it harder for you to do what you want or not. You don't feel like, nobody feels like if they'll be inspired by seeing a ramp to create a high quality ramp in one area, or high concentration of skill ramp in one area to make a different character.
I mean, if it comes down to, we've got 3 old souls and I'm making, characters for 3 different purposes, then yeah, I'll look through who's going to be more adept for what in terms of where I assign the souls. But, beyond that, if I've just got 3, blank slates to start with, then it doesn't really matter. One's as good as the next, plus or minus.
What I like about that question is I imagine that if I'm finding that I have characters that are high in military, I'm not going to choose to follow that skill. I'm going to be working against that somehow.
So you can re-roll once on a soul?
I don't even know if I would re-roll, but I would just focus on other stuff and ignore the stuff that's pushing me to do military stuff. But the other thing that I find really fascinating about that is right. And so let's say I found a character that was high in military skill, but a dark soul, I might be inspired to join Malvorn's duchy and work to undermine it, and to see what kind of tasks that the game starts throwing at me as a dark soul in a light duchy. That could be really interesting to play. And I think, having read through the entry on souls, I might want to try to explore what creates dark soul actively. I think we had a question like that last time, or maybe not, but there could be avenues that I would want to pursue. I think maybe you asked this question, Sog, about dying and wanting to die, because the next thing that might be coming up is talents, right?
Yeah.
And whether or not we want to actively try to accrue talents. And maybe one way to do that is to die often.
I want to hear from Malvorn first what kind of skill ramps he's hoping to have, like what his ideal soul makeup at the start of the game is, because there's not 100% choice on that. So we know some sort of administrative ramps, contract writing or something, along with some horsemanship type things. Malvorn, what is the ideal starting skill ramp that you may have for you?
Pretty much as a joke, I'm going to need different skills than what I was going to do as a normal player. I want agricultural skill ramps, obviously, but I also recognise the fact I'm going to need contract writing as well. I need to be able to write my own contracts. So if I can pick a skill ramp with a lot of contract writing skills, then that's what I'll pick. Also, don't forget, due to the recent fundraiser, I think we get an extra pack. So we have 6 souls to pick from, and one of them being an older soul.
Yeah, one old soul for sure, but you can, if I understand right, you can re-roll a soul once. Is that right? So if we get there and you don't want to use one, you can click re-roll once and then you get what you get? Or
I think so. I could be wrong.
So ideally, you want an old soul that has some agricultural and some contract writing ramps already in there, and maybe with a light affinity, I would think. But I want to move on a little bit because Diggs touched on this now, that one of the interesting things about the soul system is that some things aren't even usable, that you acquire playing the game aren't even usable until you die. Those being the talent acquisition and having accomplished certain achievements that you may or may not know of in your life as that sparked character. And so how does that affect playstyle? So you start off the game. For me, if my goal is to progress my soul, and a lot of people who play MMORPGs, progression is a thing. So you want to get you want to grow in level, you want to grow in whatever the progression is. And the ongoing progression, one of the cool things is how these talents apparently work, that I may want to die more often than someone else. It's presented in a way that some people might want to try to live as long as possible. But if I'm aggressively trying to progress, I'm thinking that there's room for a play style where you aggressively seek fame, aggressively seek accomplishing major things to get your soul tagged so that you can then spark it into something else and keep doing this and keep pushing. It creates this next level of intensity beyond this The problem with permadeath is potentially that people are too cautious or it's too punishing, right? But right now we have an option where being aggressive and maybe even a little reckless could be a fun way to play. What do you guys think about that?
I don't see permadeath as an end. I just see it as a continuation of that soul's journey.
I think that's definitely how you're supposed to see it. But do you think that the fact that some things that you earn in your life may not be available until you're dead may want you to speed up the end of your character? Would you ever want your character to die just so that you could play the next incarnation of this soul?
No. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Due to story points and things, you're going to have to play your character to its end. Because if you don't get enough story points, you won't be able to inherit your heir. For me, anyway, as a joke, it's very important. Because if you don't get enough story points, you don't get to inherit your title next generation.
Right. So if I were playing this, if this were a revival, I would definitely have an alt that specifically tries to die as quickly as possible in order to get a talent as quickly as possible.
You don't get the talent from die. You get the talent potentially from accomplishing something in life, but you may know about it. So you have to do something.
Yeah, but dying in a spectacular way might do that. So, but if
you're going to be the guy that dies in the funniest ways possible. Yeah, okay.
Dying a glorious death could be more story points.
I'm the one who's getting I'm getting all of the Darwin awards.
You're just going to become Thippy for one of your characters. One entire character is just going to be spawning, sieging the gates, dying. And
Right.
You're going to do that until you wear that life out.
Right.
We should call it the Malvern Awards.
Yeah, right. But Malvern doesn't want to die. So, but that's the thing. Yeah, if your character is a king or a duke or a mayor, you probably are going to want to keep that character around for a while, as Malvern says, so that you can make sure that you have an heir and all of that stuff. Whereas if you have a character that's specifically set up to explore the death mechanic, then it doesn't really matter what happens. Anything that happens to that character is new information, so that's great. But yeah, so do you have an idea about any focus? I'm thinking about other souls in your kingdom, Malvern, like Bardic or Deviant. What's the room in your duchy for souls that seem to be Deviant or Bardic, or forget what the other ones are? I'm
not exclusive of deviant skills. I recognise the fact that they can be very useful skill set. You need to use deviant to beat deviants because they know how to think as a deviant. So if you can utilise the skill sets for the advantage of a duchy, then you should. You're obliged to.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because the game's going to be throwing the tasks, so who knows how that's going to affect your duchy. You don't know for sure, right? All you know it's going to be dark instead of light, and likely going to be vicious instead of virtuous. You don't know if that's going to be for the good of your kingdom or not, right?
True, but that's we should take. That's why if you know someone wants to be a deviant, that's why you get in contact with them and try to bring him into your fold, into your sphere of influence if you have them as your friend instead of your enemy, they're much more workable. Sure, some will eventually turn against you, but most, if they see a good avenue for both the duchy progress and their own progress as well, they'll stick by you.
Yeah, I'm just really curious to see what kind of stuff the game is going to be throwing towards these Dark Souls. And then how that again is going to affect. Or
the excessively light ones. Is it gonna expect you to be charitable to your own detriment? Like,
you raise the taxes too much. That's dark.
Or you're put in this position where you're such a light soul that people are just taking advantage of you, and the only way for you to keep doing what people ask you to do is to bend over and take it.
I mean, I could see being the complete opposite. What would be hell for Diggs is he creates the character, unbeknownst to him, it turns out it's just a paladin. It's born to be a paladin. That's all it's ever going to be. And all you're ever asked to do is smite the unworthy and the heathens and the whatnot. Yeah, you would get so bored of that.
Well,
that would induce madness.
As long as I can smite in an interesting way, because the interesting. So I'm going to plug my Bless Online channel on YouTube, Diggs Briarthorn. I'm having blast in Bless Online. I'm playing a paladin. The crazy thing about playing a paladin in Bless Online is I'm playing him. I'm a Mosku, which is a little short animal type thing. And I'm playing him like a rogue for the most part, which is what I normally play. And so the question would be, would he be high in military skills? And then would I still go against that grain and focus on bardic skills or deviant skills and go about smiting people through poison versus smiting people with a blade? More than one ways to smite a person.
Exactly.
So that's the kind of fun part. Some of the fun part is playing counter to what you're given. Whether that will be my main, I don't know.
What people got to realise is that the position they're in society kind of dictates what they can do individually. Sure, someone can be an absolute pious guy, he can do all the light stuff, but for me, for example, I'm in a position of responsibility for an entire duchy and community. So I'm gonna have to be pragmatic. So if someone blatantly just uses me for free stuff, to try to bring out my virtuous side, then I'll have to put a stop to it. It would be immoral of a joke to knowingly and willingly sell out his duchy just to soothe his own self-interest.
So you're gonna make your soul so terribly dark, you're gonna damn yourself to hell trying to do the best thing for your duchy. That's the road to hell is paved with good intentions problem. Pretty
much. If it saves the souls of the duchy at a cost of mine, then that is something I'll have to do.
So let's say you've done all this, you've done whatever, your soul has a talent, has earned a talent, maybe you've earned these skills in this life. It's getting to be the end of your lifetime. As a duke, I imagine you care a whole lot about inheritance. What is your take on this? Like, your first life in the game, you are starting off as the Duke of Theron, and you have this. It seems like you've got a very good idea of what your ideal duchy is like. It sounds like it's going to be fun to play in. So it gets to the end of this first life. At this point, there's nothing guaranteed beyond that first life, other than what items you might buy in the meantime here and there that you could redeem on a second life. How important to you is inheriting your duchy with a character that you or a character that you have, I don't know what the right word, sealed so that you're the only one that can spark it as an heir, how important is it that you can spark the heir to your duchy with that soul?
Very quite important, because otherwise, if I can't inherit my heir, then I lose the duchy. So it's very important.
Within a year.
Easily. There's going to be some poor sod who's going to lose their count or duchy title in the last month of exposition when full PvP is unlocked. So someone has to lose. But I don't want to be the one losing. I like winning.
And here's not exactly a concern, but something that I'm trying to wrap my head around. So the way that souls and reincarnation work, we have to assume that characters understand some NPCs or player character, assuming that you are in character, not as the person playing character. From an in-character perspective, how much knowledge do you have of the soul inside of an offline player character or player character? How much should that matter? How much do we expect NPCs to recognize that? So if you take a soul and put it somewhere else, you're in Discord and you're talking to people, and everybody knows that I'm playing this character and I used the soul from my old character to do it. So everybody, all these real people know. How does that translate to, how does that out of character knowledge translate to in character knowledge? What is shared? What is the expectation there? Like, would you expect that since you've built this whole Discord community, would you expect that if you sparked a different body with that soul, that people would respect that character as the old one? And do you expect that the NPCs will do that, or will you have to rebuild those relationships? Basically,
for NPCs, the way they view you is what they know. So the rumor mechanic, the whispers, the reputation is what wider public will know of you. So in public, you can be a very pious person and very good, but behind closed doors, where no one sees you, you could be an evil tyrant who tortures people. So it's all about what NPCs know. But for OPCs, I'm not too sure, because most of your OPC actions are predefined by you. So you can set it to walk around a place or eat food or stuff like that. I don't know what sort of impact it'd have on the soul. We'd have to find out ourselves.
Sorry, let me clarify. I mean, I'm not talking about what an OPC does, but let's say that you take your initial character dies, and this soul that was the Duke of Theron, you are placing into an heir, which is an NPC up until then, that you were the only one allowed to put a soul into, but exists in the world in some way on its own. Then now you're playing as that character. Your soul has moved into that character. So let's say you go to an NPC that now your first character as the Duke that everyone had known for 50 years and everyone loved. He was the great horse lord of Theron. Now you're in a new body. Would you I don't know. So then I walk up to this NPC as a person in the new character body, and do you act different? How do you act? Do you act like the same? You're the same person? Would you
in game,
they would respond as the same person?
In game, I think I'd have to adjust it to what that person was, because if I had the heir and I gave them mentors and teachers, etc., to guide them towards a slightly different path, then I'd have to act in relation to the path I gave the child. But I imagine some of Valyrian would have rubbed off on the new character, so it'd be a bit of a blend.
So I'm imagining that a lot of players have this idea of progressing, right? The progressing, and you put the new soul in, and you want to pick up right where you left off. Keep this ball rolling. I'm wondering how much of a shock it is after you do that. So you're walking around and you're trying to interact with NPCs, or you walk into an area where everyone recognized your old character and you have to reintroduce yourself. So within even a few hours of playing, I'm imagining that you have to readjust your play style so dramatically that you don't even feel like you're that old thing.
Exactly. That's what I look forward to it. Be a new experience.
Nero, you want to jump in? Because I got a lot to say. We don't have a lot of time. So jump if you're going to jump.
Go right ahead. I'm just going to say something about that new sword that we got the picture of once we're kind of wrapped up on the other subject.
Great. So there's all kinds of stuff. This has been a great conversation. I'm glad we had Malborn specifically on as a guest. He's a great guest and sparking a lot of great ideas, and that's helping me find the fun in the game, actually. So, one of the questions I have from this discussion is what happens if he has a Dross neighbor that is poisoning his horse stock, so he has to go out and kill the Dross to stop them from their diseases or their poison spreading into his kingdom. And then how would that affect his soul in terms of darkness, or even the souls of his people? He has to have a crusade to save the horses of his kingdom because from this disease and poison.
The horse wars.
That could be very, very interesting to play out. But then also in terms of these returning souls and heirs, it's going to be fascinating because so many people don't like to roleplay that I think a lot of people who normally play MMORPGs are going to try to play as themselves rather than play as the souls, and that's going to be fascinating. I think for the most part, NPCs might not recognize that this soul is in a new body, but some of them may, and we have soulmates. So I imagine the soulmates would always recognize each other somehow.
But they're always born as twins somehow.
I
love who his soulmates digs.
They should somehow recognize each other in the game in some minor way. But I'm thinking that means NPCs will, to some degree, be able to recognize previous souls. And that could be really fun to play out in the lore as you're doing things that NPCs are able to recognize.
See, I'm not sure they will, because there's a whole mechanic in the game about even recognizing physical appearance. So,
but it won't be about physical appearance. It will be about something about the soul.
Oh, they'll just feel some sort of connection. Like, I think I know you from somewhere.
Right? Like there's something about you that is, memorable, or maybe it's even the talent or something like that that's triggering them. So I don't think that will be necessarily common, but it seems like that will be part of the package to some degree. And then what happens? It's really going to be fascinating. Who are people going to go with when Malborn loses the inheritance of his duchy? Will everybody flock to Malborn's heir, him as his heir? Or will people, because, he's going to probably want to regain command of his duchy,
Yeah, you got to spend a week flashing the ring to make sure people hey, look at this. I am the Duke. You might not know me too well, but I'm the Duke.
I'm not just the Duke, I'm the Horse Lord.
Is it going to be the ring, or is it going to be the soul? Who is it that people are going to flock to and support? That could be a very interesting thing.
Last thoughts before we wrap this up. We've kept Malvorn up real late here. Do we have any questions from chat before we do the giveaway?
How did we get Malvorn on?
Yeah, that was about the only one.
How did we get Malvorn on? He is outspoken in the community and has good ideas and is willing to talk about everything. And he did a great job on Town Crier and the BBC show, and we were super excited to have him, and I don't regret it at all. I think we've had a great time. Thanks for coming on.
Mm-hmm.
My pleasure.
And if you haven't, if anyone's here and they don't know of the Town Crier show, Morbus here is, that's his show, and Noslim, who is also in chat, is a large part of the Boardwheel Broadcasting Company, and you should definitely check out those shows. We watch and listen to them and talk about them amongst ourselves, and we steal their ideas.
And are we hoping to have Morbus on next time?
Not next time, but we will definitely be having him on soon. We got Hopefully, we'll have Velix, one of our old hosts.
Oh, Velix is on. He's on the next one. Okay, great.
I am going to draw the winner of this and let Malvorn announce this. Just give me a second here.
All right. My thoughts real quick on that sword. I've been looking at it a lot. I'm guessing those are like gems or maybe some sort of weird sort of teeth. They talk about it being this infectious, grievous wounds and stuff from them. And, there's a lot of ways that can happen. I understand why it's all wrapped up like that and has the little inlays, is because it's a softer metal. They're not the greatest of metalsmiths. They aren't the masters of alloy. So it's something that's heavy enough that you can poke, and with all that weight from the wider part that the stuff's in, it's gonna poke really, really hard. But being a softer metal, I understand why they put those little extra things in. Those are going to be harder. The leather, of course, it could be a little decorational, but I actually assume it's carrying some sort of poison, or perhaps has been smeared with poop or something to make it extra infectious. Just being realistic here. So that's what my guess is that soft metal, so they have to use hard other things to get that nice sharp edge. The leather is there to carry toxins, and it's that little poker at the end of it, instead of the entire length of it being a stabber, is just so that way they can kind of get through heavy stuff, but they aren't trying to insert it all the way to the hilt into anything really. So that's what I got.
Great, that was great. I was not expecting that. That's we got it for our rants. That's awesome.
So I just drew the winner. I can't post that in there because it has an email address and everything. But Malvorn, why don't you announce the name of the winner of your giveaway contest for the Mayor Package?
I am pleased to announce that David Haddon has won the Mayor Package.
So we'll be reaching out by email and facilitating transferring that over. Just need to verify that he met the requirements, and that's pretty exciting. We're hoping to do some more giveaways as time goes on. I think we have an idea for some EP giveaways coming up in a couple weeks, and looking forward to doing more stuff like that. Just get people involved, help spread some in-game item love. And
I have a question for Chad, because we had talked about this internally, but since there's quite a few people watching, if we do future giveaways, is EP the way to go, or would people prefer other things, or does it not really matter? Well, we'll get
an answer from Chad.
Okay, so, well, thanks everyone for coming. Really appreciate it. I think we had a great conversation about souls. We learned a whole lot about the Duchy of Theron, which seems like an interesting and fun place to play once the world of Elyria is open for everyone. I want to thank you again, Malvorn, for coming. And we will hopefully see some people next week for the Ashen Forge, and in the meantime, you should check out Diggs's new Bless Online videos that are entertaining me. So if they entertain me, they should probably entertain somebody else.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. See you later.
Adios, everybody.
Bye.